Welcome everybody to the MTD Christmas Special podcast. I am very lucky because I am joined by Giovanni Albanese.
Hey up, Linz, how you doing? All right?
I'm very well, thank you. Joe Reynolds.
Hello. You okay?
Yeah, really good, thanks. And Paul Jones.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning. It is Christmas time and it is Christmas Day tomorrow. How exciting.
Can't wait.
Yes, we're all very excited, aren't we?
Can't wait. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah, well,
just don't like the cold weather. Just hate the cold weather. I'd much rather be somewhere hot and sunny, experiencing the Christmas thing just with some sunshine.
It's going to be nice, though, for the emails to stop for a week or two, isn't it?
The spam doesn't stop, do you?
No, I don't.
The spam keeps going even more over Christmas because you've got all the sales and all the rest of it, haven't you? That will be coming out. You'll be able to get yourself some new clothes and some new shoes.
VAT. You don't
Joe,
pay VAT on your clothes. You're still in child sizes,
and you get your emails from Giacomo as well, don't you? Yeah. Capitalise on it.
Already,
and millets.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's early on. That's all the jokes you've got banked up. He's used them all by now. Just so you know, so today we're basically going to cover the year that we've had at MTD CNC. We've all had a particularly, what's the best word?
Homogenous. Is that a good word?
What's that mean?
Tumultuous.
Challenging.
Unprecedented. Oh, that word. We
Can't
can
use
forget
that
that
word.
word. That's been
banned.
That's been burned out.
Yeah, it has actually. Yes, we're just going to be talking about our experience at MTD CNC over the year. Of course, with work, but sociably too. At home, how we've all felt. And we've got some stories to tell. To be fair, overall, the year has been very busy.
Yeah, I think when you look back on it now, I think if we could have thought we'd have been in the position that we would have been in with everything that's happened, I would have been really, really pleased, chuffed. I mean, obviously the most recent breaking news with Tony Gunn coming on board and heading up the global side of the business has been, it's massive for us, it's massive for him. So, I mean, if we'd have thought at the start of the year that we would have, maintained parity, grown our channels, increased revenue and got Tony on board, I'd have been really happy. And those are the things that have happened. So it's, I know people have struggled and it has been a difficult year for most, but I think, we've worked really hard to try and buck the trend and do some new stuff. So
When you look back over the year, you can't believe where you've been. And I feel like, I don't know if anybody else feels the same way, but the year has actually gone very fast, even though for a percentage of it, yet we were just at home and we were all quite nervous, quite scared. But it's Christmas already. I mean, we say it anyway, but this year in particular, it's bonkers.
Yeah, I mean, Gio had a really busy lockdown, didn't you?
Yeah, I was relatively productive during lockdown. And
why? What happened?
Got my third baby on the way.
Yeah, I don't want any detail. Yeah.
So no, that was good. I think
it was up and down for Gio.
Okay, so gents, who's going to start off? Maybe Joe, one of your highlights from the year.
Wow. There's loads, although it's been a terrible year from one side of the fence, the other side of the fence. It's been fairly positive. For me, from a business perspective, Ventilator Challenge and all the good work that was done through UK manufacturing on that. And at home, same as everyone else. We're all still fit and healthy. No COVID present, fortunately. But it's been a bad year, but a good year at the same time, I guess.
Yeah, mixed.
Mixed, yeah.
Yeah, I can't believe you guys went to Dubai earlier on in the year. It was January, wasn't it?
It was January, yeah. I mean, that was our first. I mean, the COVID thing was happening in the Far East then, but myself, Colin, and Chris went to Dubai. We went to the Still Fab show, which was going to be the start of a really hectic schedule of events.
Yeah,
I mean,
we were going to China.
Yeah, there was China planned, there was Korea planned, there was. There was a whole raft of even Russia. We had a lot of shows planned, but Steel Fab was the one we went to.
You actually went to Belgium not long after you got back from Dubai as well.
Correct.
We?
Yeah, actually
did.
Yeah,
we went
little
trip there.
Yeah, we went to Belgium with Martin Page, and Martin enjoyed it, didn't he?
Oh, it was a cracking night.
Yeah, he didn't enjoy the morning after, did he? But he enjored.
Brilliant.
He enjoyed the night.
Did you drive, train, or walk, Gio? Because I presume he didn't fly.
First time I'd ever been on the tunnel. Went on the Eurostar.
Was it okay for you?
It was fine, yeah. Perfect.
Wasn't flying, that's okay.
No, it was absolutely perfect.
But it's amazing. Was that in January? Wow, that's another thing that it must have been, mustn't it?
Yeah, it must have been end of January, I believe. Yeah, it was, when we were there for a couple of nights, it was fantastic, wasn't it?
I remember we went to Switzerland with a rower, and we got up really, really early. I don't know if anyone's met Ian, the cameraman. It was so funny. We went into this meeting, but Ian was so tired because he had to get up at something like 2 a.m. We were in this meeting and he was going through like the presentations, and he doesn't really need to know the detail. And I turned around, he was fast asleep in the corner of the meeting. And I was like, Ian, wake up.
You're talking about the same cameraman here once that was coming to Spain with me, and we were flying out from Stansted. It was supposed to be flying out at 6 o'clock in the morning, so he booked a hotel the night before at Stansted, drove down there in what was the van then that he was using. And when he got to the hotel about 11 o'clock in the evening, he went to check in and he'd actually booked for an incorrect date. So, and there was no rooms left in the hotel. There was no other hotels that had any availability. So he had to sleep in the van. So he literally laid in the back of the van for about 3 or 4 hours. And when I met him at the airport, you could just tell he was dishevelled and,
Dying to tell you.
Yeah. He was. And very tired at the same time.
I think you guys were all harsh on him. I've heard you're quite partial to a sleep when he's chauffeuring you around, Mr. Reynolds.
Yeah.
What do you think? You got the job? Lives 8 miles away.
If anyone's met Ian, he's such a lovely gentleman and he drives a lot. But the thing is with Ian, he'll drive up and down the country. He'll do 4 hours, do a job, and he'll be on his feet all day, lifting all the camera equipment. And then he'll have a 4-hour journey at home and you'll be like, "You all right?" He'll be like, "Yeah, I love driving." And he just loves driving. It's great.
And Starbucks.
Yeah. Oh, he loves Starbucks.
Yes.
Doesn't he?
Yeah. But the still fab was the first thing. And then, it was the robo job.
Yeah.
Then myself and Mark went to the DMG Maury Fronton house. That was in February. That was actually the last trip that I
We also had Southern Manufacturing
Southern
that we
Manufacturing.
went to as well before.
And I remember those.
Yeah, and I mean, at the time there, I can remember driving down. I actually drove down with you, Lindsay.
Yeah, we did.
At the beginning of the year, and I can remember we were discussing on the way down, like kind of our concerns about COVID. And I think that there were first 2 kind of people that had got diagnosed in the UK from Brighton at the time with COVID, and it was like started to kind of first kind of be present in the UK. And I can remember at the show there was people coughing and splurting, and
So did you spread it,
didn't kind of really.
Did you bring it back up to the Midlands?
Well, I don't know if I've had it or not, to be fair, but we didn't take much notice of it at the time.
You
and then it was just, and then in March it all changed, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, the DMG Maury Open House in Fronton, when we got back, in fact, when we were there, I mean, it really is a phenomenal place to go to, the factory, but the backdrop in the Alps and all the rest of it was absolutely beautiful. But when we were there, he had stopped people coming to the show from China. They had literally said they're not going to have a Chinese contingents this year because of the COVID, but everyone else was free license to go. It was absolutely packed. I mean, thousands and thousands of people. When we got back, there had been an outbreak in the factory there, so it was all about that time. It was just beginning to happen.
I think we had, and I'm not going too deep in anyone's thoughts of COVID, but I think everyone would probably agree before we realised it was there before we realised. And I think because we thought, it's in China, it's quite far away. But, we travel, the world's a very small place.
Weren't you supposed to be going to China, Lynn?
Yeah, we were. We were meant to be going there. Shenzhen. I was so excited. I saw the hotel and everything that we were going to stay in. And then that was it. It was a big show out there. So anyway, moving on. So, okay, let's move on to, say, March, first lockdown.
Excuse me.
It's COVID now.
Paul, as the managing director of the company, from your perspective, March, when we went into first lockdown, what did you think? What were your first initial thoughts?
My initial thoughts was looking at protecting staff, mainly, health and safety of the people that work for us. So any time people could work from home, they would. But also trying to really keep the business going. I think as the owner of a company, what you're always trying to do is make sure that you can keep your staff employed, you can keep them safe, you can keep your business going, you can continue to work with your customers, and you can continue to offer the service that you've offered them throughout. And you've just got to try and think of other ways to do it. And that was really we didn't know how long we were going to be. I remember sitting down on the 23rd of March listening to I mean, that's how poignant the date is, listening to Boris Johnson saying you must stay at home.
It felt like a war was about to begin.
It did. And you were listening to him and you just thought, how long is this going to go on for? The furlough scheme was announced. Fortunately, we didn't need to participate in that really because we'd got a good customer base and we were continuing to offer our services. But were we still going out? I mean, we were, you all know yourselves, we were at our peak around that time, visiting probably 10 to 15 companies a week. Filming, there was no social distancing. It was all normal. We were travelling on trains, travelling on the roads were busy. It was all, and everything just overnight. It just came to this complete grinding halt. So I think the answer is I was just very conscious about protecting the business in all aspects and making sure that when we come out of it, not only we'd survived, but we'd continued to invest in that period, because these are challenging times, are times when we've seen it, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in this podcast, that some of the engineers that have really taken on board government options with the CBILS schemes, the bounce back loans, and they've invested in the technology this year, they're going to be the have-beens, going into 2021. And there's going to be the companies that are going to struggle that haven't done that. And I think when you take a step back and you look at our business, I'm sure it's evident to see from people that watch what we do, we have grown this year, and we've continued to develop and continue to do things differently.
Yeah.
And
it's interesting when you say about people, what trends have happened, and we'll go around each of you and ask what you've noticed. But I personally have noticed, because I've been on the road a little bit more this year, is the fact that people are investing, I know we say it, in automation, but because of COVID, because of social distancing, a lot of people are automating and considering automation more than ever before because of reducing numbers of staff on the shop floor, for financial reasons, but safety reasons as well.
You don't need to social distance from a robot, do you?
No.
I think personally, and I haven't seen any statistics, but we are now entering with automation where we'd be in 5, 6, 7 years without COVID. I really do think that. It's just common sense now. We use that term, or Gio says no-brainer. Now it's whatever's more of a no-brainer than a no-brainer, isn't it? You kind of have to now. It's been forced upon you. Not by legislation, but the next best thing, really. I'll tell you one thing we haven't mentioned. If you'd have said at Christmas there's not going to be a Mac show,
yes.
You just wouldn't have believed it, would you?
No, you wouldn't. No.
Well, I remember on the 1st of March actually sitting down with you, Gio, because one of your colleagues was going to help us with the stand, and of course Interco, our sponsor, we'd got an agreement to have a big stand there. We've got a big presence, and you were saying to me, you're going to, what if we go into lockdown? And I was saying that's not going to happen, Gio. We're not going to go into lockdown. Of course, Mac's going to happen. It's 6 weeks away. It's going to happen. But lo and behold, like you say, it all. That was almost Mac in the end actually ended up being almost like the peak of the outbreak, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
I think a big shock, wasn't it, when it didn't happen? I think the industry was in shock that it didn't happen. I think a lot of people had spent a lot of time planning for Mac as well, didn't they? And it was a turning point really in this year, I think.
But then they said it was going to be postponed till January 2021, and everyone was like, we're going to be well out of this by then, aren't we? And again, lo and behold, we're less than a month from that date, and there's absolutely no way that show could have.
Well, I think you can. You're allowed up to 1,000, aren't you? So that might have got half of the exhibitors in, but nobody could go and view the machines, the technology.
The biggest thing for me is how people have adapted, though. I think people have adapted, they've changed, they've changed the way in which they work. People's roles have changed in the way in which they did things in the past. They can't do it like that no more.
Exactly. Just to add to your point as well, Gio, it's almost strange that, before we were there saying, can't believe those people are wearing a mask, can't believe it. And then now you're in a position where you see someone, people not everyone wears masks, but you're in a position why aren't they wearing a mask? And that's in the space of only 6 months. Look how we've all changed. It's just transformed all of the way our lives.
In that March period, we decided to do a daily show where we invited industry professionals to come and talk to us about what was happening via Zoom here in the studio, and that went down really well. That was, it became, there was almost like a waiting list in the end for people that wanted to put their opinions across about how they were coping with the situation. And it was interesting just to hear how, the ventilator challenge, we had people on that were making parts for the ventilators, companies that were selling machines into the ventilator challenge. And we were doing all that, again, not realising how long this thing was going to take to go. And I remember talking to people here saying, come May, we're going to be right out of this. We're going to be back to where we were. But it was only in May where we started going to companies again safely. I remember going up to when we went to Desmond Engineering and we were taught, you know, we had all the PPE on and the hand gels and wiping all the mics and the distancing.
We were so like, when you first went out, and it's the same with everyone, you know, if you've been at home for so long, you first went out, and I was cleaning all my shopping coming in, and you went out, and it was quite scary, wasn't it, to go out for the first time? And once you do, you kind of get used to it. It becomes second nature to have the gel with you and spraying the microphones and stuff.
My first job out after lockdown was the ETG live event, and I can remember it was quite surreal. It was so strange.
Well, you're a very tactile person, aren't you?
Oh,
you
goodness gracious me! I mean, it was so strange.
You sort of walked close to you, and then you were backing off. It was like two It was like the north and the north on a magnet. When it's coming, and it's away again.
You saying that? Me and Gia went to an unnamed business. It'd be unfair to mention them. You go to a reception, like, where's my forms? Oh, no forms. Where's the sanitizer? I'll use my own then. And you go in there, want to hug you. Oh, I love what you guys do, and it's amazing. And then you go to another place, and it's like going into GCHQ. No, security through the roof. There's all sorts.
And it was hard for us as a company and individuals to know where what was appropriate and what was inappropriate. I mean, we all knew the rules, but it was hard to. It was just hard to know. Well, has he had someone that's been affected by it? Has she had someone that's been affected by it? You know, can you tell a joke about it? Is that politically incorrect?
And anti-vaxxers and it's right there, isn't it?
Yeah, there's conspiracy theorists. I mean, not that we've got any in this room.
Don't start.
I think one thing that, I mean, moving back one step though, going back to the change things. I mean, we've all been killed by PowerPoint, haven't we? Like, I mean, we were a digitalised company, and it's brought digitalisation and social media to the forefront even more. Everyone's been at it. Everyone's had more time to be engaged with it.
We know you've been at it, Gio.
Just the once. Congratulations. It was a strike first time. That one. But anyway, it's certainly changed. I think it's going to change the way we live forever now. I think it has created change.
Really?
I definitely do, because, and the reasons I think that is I think that people have also seen the benefits of how they've working in this way. So, for example,
with Zoom and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, kind of service calls now are being done remotely, and maybe in the past they'd send a service engineer, 3 or 4 hours up the motorway to look at something that they could look at remotely. So they've seen potential savings, and they've identified areas in which they can be more efficient by working in this way. So it has in its own way created benefits.
I just don't like it. I just don't like it.
I think as a precautionary measure, yes, doing something like that, but I think you lose so much being face to face with people. I just think, I agree with that, but then there needs to be that visit. You
don't need to be face to face for a service call, though. I believe face to face when you're doing a sales call, there's nothing better. Yeah. But for certain jobs like a service call, you don't really need to be talking to anyone. It's just about fixing the machine or solving the problem. But I think that even with sales guys, this year, they've suffered. I know a lot of sales guys in the industry that have struggled to get into any companies, and I can't imagine how hard it must have been for them. Knocking on doors, or can't even being. I
think that's one area that might change a lot.
And 100% probably will.
I think some companies have used it for the right reasons, to protect their staff and stop footfall in their companies. But I've also seen the flip side of that, where invitations for us to go in places has increased, and it's because they've wanted to expose their business through methods that they know people are using at the moment. But I think they might look at this now and actually, do I need that salesman to come? Do I need all those salesmen to come in? I mean, it always used to surprise me that some of these guys own companies. I mean, if we were here today and there's salesmen knocking on the doors wanting to spend 15, 20 minutes with you, if you had 3 of them a day, 4 of them a day, it's an hour of your day that you've lost. I just don't have time for that. I don't mean that. It's not that I don't want to see someone, but I don't have an hour.
You just want it organised prior to that.
Yeah, and if I've got
engineers not said that though, I've had that all the time. They're using it if they want to see somebody, they will. But now they just mention the C word.
But that's what I mean.
And it's an acceptable excuse.
But I look back now, I remember when I was selling machines on the road, I used to do a lot of door knocking, and it was how you did things then. And I would get in places and I might spend 20 minutes, half an hour talking to someone that had no idea that I was going to be turning up.
Wow.
And if you think then, and I'm thinking to myself, hang on a minute, if they welcomed me for that 20 minutes, half an hour, and then somebody else is knocking on the door, so they might sit there and get nothing done all day.
100%.
But I think now is all like you're chasing seconds. We're talking about machines that are chasing seconds. They haven't got the seconds. Life's changed considerably.
I think that through my own experience prior to me joining MTD, I think that kind of role as a salesperson or traditional salesperson had already started to change.
Yeah.
And I think the reason being is I think that as a salesperson in this day and age, you need to also be a marketeer and be able to network through the social media platforms and be able to kind of qualify your leads or your sales appointments before you even have to go and see them, befriend them on social media and being able to kind of
Paul, when you
network
were
with them.
when you were a salesperson though, Paul, I'm going to be honest, was there the social media? Was there the internet?
No, there wasn't.
Gio's just hit the nail on the head.
No,
They
there
were
wasn't.
qualifying leads more now, aren't they?
I think the world has changed up till now, but I think it will change even more now because I think companies will realise that they can say no to people.
And I think
they can say that as a result of we no longer accept sales representatives without a prior appointment, and you just don't.
So does that mean the sales process changes? We've seen it with some of our customers
100%.
now, unfortunately, looking to reduce headcount and maybe use other services, maybe us, maybe someone different to do that.
It does, and this has been highlighted to me this year even more so. And I know we're quite good at promoting what we do as well as our customers, and make no secret of the fact that it's important for us to market what we do and market the fact that it works. But when, for example, you, Lindsay, would ask some of the companies, where did they first see the machine? How did they know about this particular product? It is, and they're not made up. You know,
No.
they are true real time. Analysis from a company that has used platforms in order to research, and so all of this goes into the mix. I think to make it.
To add to that, Paul, I've had people messaging me on LinkedIn, I'm looking for a machine, can you recommend? And I've got to be totally, unbiased because of the different brands we work for. But I get messages of people saying, I'm looking for this machine, what am I after? And I'm thinking, I'm not a salesperson for that company, but they're looking for advice. So anyway, let's go on to other trends from the year. What's Joe, have you got anything that's stood out for you?
For me, obviously, we're at home expecting maybe some quiet time. That didn't happen, did it? We work differently, but certainly personally, I've never had a busier summer. It was nice looking out the office window, seeing the kids in their sandpit and, playing in the garden, because typically we don't see that. Kids are at school, we're busy, we're busy working. So it was nice, even though I was working, to see them. It's the first one. Second, the weather, incredible. I'd open my office door, walk outside, and the barbecue was lit, and it's like barbecue for lunch.
In the morning.
Did you light it or did...
I have to light it, yeah. Oh. Yes. But yeah, no, it's, joking aside, the weather was incredible. Can you imagine if we'd have had that lockdown for that period of time now?
Yeah.
It would have been terrible, so depressing, wouldn't it?
I think that's why it's probably been harder this time round in that sense, because we couldn't go out. We can't go outdoors, can we? And then we wanted to see people, we'd go for walks, but if it's raining and horrible, then you can't, can you?
But summer was also an interesting time because you normally get what people call the silly season from July the 20th to the end of August, where engineers are off on holiday. Whether you were a salesman, whatever you were, it was always difficult. It was difficult to get your orders. It was difficult to get in places. But that didn't really happen a lot this year. I think a lot of engineers carried on working through the summer because they were either working on ventilator challenges or they were trying to position themselves well for when this thing changed.
They couldn't go on holiday.
They couldn't go. Well, some could, but not everybody did manage to get away on holiday, and if they did, they didn't go very far. Maybe Chester or somewhere like that.
Chichester. That's where I went.
Chichester.
Posh there, isn't it, Linz?
Pardon?
Posh. Is it posh?
I don't know. I just went to. It was the first time I've went to a Haven holidays, and it was brilliant. I must admit, I wasn't expecting it to be so good, but yes, Chichester.
Yeah, so the summer was it was a time, and obviously the Euro Championships didn't happen, and all those good things that you want in the summer, all the football, but we were all just kind of head down, trying to make the most of a bad situation, and we thought that coming out of August, we were going into September, and lockdown was going to or lockdown was long gone, and infection rates were much lower, and deaths had come down, and we all thought, right now September, it's the big last push of the year. Mac was still going to happen,
of course.
But all of that again then changed as we got to the latter part of the year. But I think when you go through the year, I think the things that I've noticed is the things that we've spoken about already. Really, I think that it has been about survival of the fittest for sure this year. It's been about surviving this crisis, and I think we've done it well. But a lot of the engineers we know have done it good too, and they've invested in the right kit to to keep them going.
Yeah, definitely, and overcome lots of challenges. How, Paul, I'm going to ask you this question. OEMs, the companies that we go out to, how do you think they've felt?
I think they've been frustrated, really frustrated, and I think it couldn't have come at a worse time for a lot of our bigger customers that work. Hand to mouth is a bad analogy to use, but a lot of the big equipment manufacturers that we work with, or big distributors here, they work on a cycle of bringing in machinery, ordering it 10, 15 weeks in advance of when they expect to see it here. It lands here and they need to move it, cash flow, commercial implications and all the rest of it. And I think for them, especially with what Mac was coming up in April, they would have pre-ordered probably November, December last year, an additional quantity of machines to satisfy that post-Mac demand.
That's the big thing, isn't it?
And they can't stop those. Once they're going, you can't stop it. And I think that it was like all the walls fell in at once for them, because they weren't selling machines, they couldn't get salesmen in places, people were going, wow, I'm not going to buy a machine at the moment.
Service as well.
At that time, that all the government schemes weren't necessarily, let's say, people weren't educated enough to see the benefits of those, and they didn't know how far this thing was going to happen. So there was machines out there in stock, crazy deals happening. Yeah. They'd paid for them. They needed to turn these machines, lumps of metal, into cash. And I just think must have been a nightmare.
I went to a company.
Must have been a nightmare.
I'm not going to tell you who it was, but I said, how much did you pay? And they said, a few months ago we quoted randomly like £100,000. And then they said, it came down to like 80, 60, and I think it was like 40 odd that they paid. And I was like, you're kidding me. And I just think some were just like, no, we just need that turnover.
I've seen it in machine tool distributors. Those machines, my old managing director used to say to me, that isn't a machine, that represents a lump of money.
Yeah.
And I need to turn that from a piece of cast iron into cash.
Yeah.
And I've got 50 of them,
Did you learn how to do that? Because I've got plenty of cast iron in my garage. We're wasting our time here if it's that easy.
Well, that's the problem. It isn't, and that's why a lot of them were still there, and that was the crisis in itself.
But you know what? I know, jumping ahead a little bit, a lot of light at the end of the tunnel, isn't there?
Oh.
The words when Boris said, we're going to keep the manufacturing industry going. And I think within seconds of Boris saying it, we've got a big group, obviously, for the company. And Paul was so on it. It's like the message comes through. Okay, we're okay. Everybody, we're okay. Manufacturing's going. The industries are going. The equipment's going to get moved, And I think we're all a bit like, and okay.
It's so important, though. And sometimes you have to have frank conversations with your staff that maybe don't understand the implications of a sector that you operate in coming to a grinding halt. Because, if our customers aren't making money, they haven't got money to pay us. And if they haven't got money to pay us, we haven't got money to pay our staff. And it goes down the chain. But the fact that the manufacturing sector kept going and construction kept going, that meant that basically our customers were still going to sell machines.
Yeah.
Their customers were still making parts, and therefore they could still pay us, and therefore we could keep our staff. And that is as simple as it is, and that is the main thing I've had in my head all this year.
I've seen a lot of positivity out there. We've all been through a challenging time, but through this challenging time, I can only kind of report on positive stuff. And there's been a lot of positivity. There's been a lot of investment. There's been a lot of great stories, and we've visited some amazing companies and reported on some fantastic success stories. And again, being able to diversify and go into different sectors, maybe they've moved into different sectors and made their business a completely different business during this time because they've had to, but it make them stronger moving forward and going into next year.
And I think it's because they've learned to live with the crisis as well.
Yeah.
People have learned to actually they're living in it. They're just going to carry on.
They're carrying on, but living with it. I mean, we went to that one company, and there's a particular material that they never cut. And like you say, that the word that I kept on hearing, diversification, they're now cutting that metal, and they never did. They were all kind of specials and stuff like that. And so people are just changing the way they work.
I think also there's a big element of complacency. In the past, maybe that companies have just carried on going through the motions and making their kind of regular turnover, if you like, and not really analysed what they've been doing, and that goes from all aspects of the business, from their marketing to their manufacturing, all the way through. And I think that through this crisis, it's made them look at themselves within and look at how they can improve their business. And I think that because of that, a lot of the people I've spoke to have come to MTD and looking at what we do and what we're reporting on.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, go on, Joe. You go.
No, I was just going to say that obviously there's going to be an aftershock, isn't it? Like a COVID aftershock. We're not quite sure. Hopefully, COVID's coming to the beginning of the end, as we keep hearing on the news. But there's going to be an aftershock, isn't there? There's going to be some sort of taxation. The government, whether they've done a good, bad job, that money needs to be paying, doesn't it? So manufacturing is going to play a pivotal part in that. Of course, London, the markets, all the commercial stuff down there is going to have a huge impact. But I think UK manufacturing is more important than it's ever been.
What Paul's just said, everyone's got to learn to live with it. So whatever happens, we've just got to learn to live with it.
But the travelling, even though, because we've continued to go, when I've gone down to, for example, down to Dugard in Hove, I go on the train, and the train takes me from Bedford right the way through London to it's a direct train. And in months gone by before this, I'd get on the train at 6:30 in the morning to avoid to get a seat. And that's where the train started. But by the time you got to London, it was just, it was full. And London, it was buzzing and people walking into stations and all the rest of it. When I was going the latter part of the summer, I'd get on the train in the morning. I could go later because it wasn't so busy. And there would literally be, I'd be on trains where there'd be no one else on it. And you get through to London.
A bit like your aeroplane.
Yeah, and you get through to London, and there's no one walking around London. Now, you've got to think of all of these banks that have got buildings where they're employing 10,000 people that they're not using that property anymore.
Tourism.
And they might not continue. They've already said they might continue to. My sister works for a bank, and she used to work from the office in Northampton, and now they've already said, actually, you're going to work from home now. Going forward, they've got all the software in place.
Yeah.
Actually, she's not that happy about it because she likes the interaction with working with people, but they can not rent their property anymore. But that's the knock-on effect of that is the city has a huge impact because of the small guy that sells his donuts. When you buy your donuts, Joe, in the morning, you won't be able to get your donuts.
I always buy two.
You won't be able to get them. You won't be able to get them anymore in the morning. But the coffee shops are, the little retailers and things like that. They're the ones that have got the catastrophe on their hands. And
Paul, my friend lives in central London. She sent me a picture not that long ago, and it was a picture of Buckingham Palace, and there was one person in the shop.
And that was the Queen.
That was the Queen, yeah.
But I just thought, wow, London tourism, everything. Anyway, right, okay, we're coming to the end now. So is there anything that anybody wants to add? Any positive message for going forward?
What I saw as we went into the last quarter, me and Colin did actually get to an exhibition. We started to think in September, exhibitions started to happen again. And we had a list. Again, we were going to Poland, we were going to Italy, we were going to Spain. And we were going to the grinding one in Germany, Grindtech. All of these events were planned. We managed to get to just one of them, which was in Poland. That was at the end of September. And I remember going to the show, and the show was just deserted. There was hardly anybody there, but it was great to go to a trade show. People had bought their machines there. We went on the plane, and there was probably 6 or 7 people on this jet. And,
wow.
And you think, how can these airlines continue to operate at the same time? But we went to a show, we filmed it, we broadcast it, and it was great. And I thought it was the start of things moving on again. And of course, then it all came to a grinding halt again. But it is now. I'm glad we've come to the end of the year. Let's put it behind us. We've certainly got a really positive 2021 in front of us.
Yeah.
Just think this time next year, we're going to be talking about how good the global expansion's been, how good or bad has Brexit been, or
Yeah,
will there be a
Brexit-
Brexit? You know, we're days away from
Yeah.
one way or the other. And you know, implications of a vaccine to the markets, to our own health. It's going to be an incredible year all around.
Yeah, definitely.
But in saying that, the Brexit conclusion, you know, we're going to survive whatever happens here, and you know, with what's going on. So that's can only be positive. It has to be. The vaccination, well, again, that has to be a massive positive when you think it's normally taken years to develop these things, and we've got several options now. So I can only see good things next year.
Yeah, and sorry, Gio. Final one for me. Just
It's just a joke.
Humbled, if that's the right word. No. It's probably the most serious thing I've said all day. But humbled how loyal clients have been. You know, everyone's had a tough year. I don't have a client that's probably grown this year. Maybe I do, maybe I don't, but probably not. Amazing how, you know, how they've been with us, continuing to pay their bills with us, and obviously we've been doing our bit, obviously. But yeah, no, it's quite humbling.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed this year, I must admit. I mean, obviously, take COVID out, but client interaction and everything, it has been a really good year meeting people. And I'm doing more and more work now with MTD and going out on the road a lot more. And it is so good. Like, it's really weird that when I was off, I was like, I miss the smell of a machine shop. Is that strange, or is that, you know... I think it was just I missed normality.
You wanted to work in the shop that I used to work in back in Rolls Royce.
Is this a joke?
We used to cut cast iron. I've said it before, and it used to go up your nose and in your ears. Oh. So when you get home, you'd blow your nose and it would just be black because
lovely.
you've got cast iron. But you could smell it all the time. So I used to have one of those... what do you call them? Those Vicks things. You stick Vicks things.
Wow, what a sight! And Gio,
for me, really, echoing what Joe says, really, I think that albeit I've seen my clients less, I felt like I've been in the trenches with them more, and I've spoke to them more because we've had to communicate more and talk about things in different ways, and we felt like we've all been in it together. And I think it's united us more, and I think it's made us stronger again moving forward. And I think that out of every negative there's always a positive, and like you said, Paul, you've got to move on, and I think that it's, you know, looking forward to next year.
Have your Christmas dinner tomorrow and reflect on
if
what
we've got
has been
turkey. I'm not sure if we've managed to pick one up yet.
Right. On that note, I don't want any food jokes between you all. On that note, from all of us at MTD CNC, thank you for all of your support within a tough 2020, and let's think positively going forward into 2021. We all hope you have a lovely Christmas and a very happy New Year.
Thank you very much. Happy Christmas.
Thanks for listening to the MTD podcast. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe and leave a rating and review. Find more episodes on mtdcnc.com.